What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to go through all the trades that we took throughout the week and just show you guys exactly how I trade these charts when it comes to the system. That's what I trade. That's what it's called. We're using options charts to read the market. So to start off, again, I'm just going to go over this. It's probably repetitive for people that have been watching, but we use Friday contracts to determine the trend in the market, and then we use the 0DT contracts to give us those intraday entries for taking trades. So on the 0DTs, we only use the 5-minute. On the Friday contracts, the 30-minute chart is the main time frame we're using in determining the trend. So for example, on Friday, we ended up getting this cross here on the 30-minute, market flip bearish, and that's why we ended up getting a massive dump. But I really don't want to go over Friday. I'll kind of recap that tomorrow, go over them. So when we pull this over here, first trade that I'm going to go over UNH. This was actually a loser, I think, of a couple percent. So this isn't for SPY. So on individual names on the 30-minute chart, this tells us the trend. Same thing for SPY. But when it comes to the individual stocks, I'm only playing the 30-minute chart because there is no 0DT contracts for individual names, only on Fridays, obviously, since they expire on Friday. But I'm never looking at those. I'm always looking at the, if it's Friday, I'm looking at the following Friday expiration. If it's, Monday to Thursday, I'm still looking at that same weekly Friday expiration. And if this chart is crossed, it's bullish, and these dips to the 50 are buying opportunities. So I ended up buying this at the 50 here, and I stopped out for, I think, 3%, something like that. Really small loss, 3 to 7%. And yeah, it just didn't end up playing out. We bounced a little bit. I think it was up like 25-30%. And my TPs, I always say this, my TPs are between 50 to 70% from my first trim. I'm never selling my position, everything right off the bat when it comes to individual stocks, because I know the typical move that these crosses and these 50 dips give, and it's always in that range, usually a lot more. So 50 to 70% is what I'm looking for to take anything off the table. I don't care if it gets to 45%. I'm not taking anything off the table. I'm waiting for that 50 to 70% range to take a trim, because I know that's what I'm usually getting out of these bounces and out of these crosses. So I always see people in the Discord taking like 20-30% gains. It's not bad or anything to lock in profits, but at the end of the day, you want to be maximizing your winners. And when the system typically gives 50 to like 80% on these moves, you're kind of not really following the system, in my opinion, and you just got to let your winners win. That's how you're going to survive in this game. That's how, if you take a loss, it really won't affect your P&L that much, because you're holding your winners a lot longer than your losers. And that's why I feel like what we done really good this week. I mean, my losses this week were super tiny. We UNH only like 5% probably the loss was, because I saw it started to break below 50, and I ended up stopping out. I don't have the screenshot of that, but that's what ended up happening. We started to break below the 50. It bounced from here a little bit, started to break below the 50. I got out. I didn't like it, so we ended up closing it, and then it actually dumped a little bit more. But then it actually did turn around throughout the week and absolutely fly. But in regards to the system, this was my stop out point, and I followed my trading plan. So that was the first trade we took. I don't even know if that was the first trade, but that's the first one I'm going to go over. Next one, these are for the SPY trades, all right? So like I said, for the SPY intraday trades, day trades, we're looking at the 5-minute time frame on the 0DT contracts, and there's a certain way to pick the contract. So don't just go throwing any strike price on your watch list and watching the cross, because that's not how it's going to work, and you're not going to do well doing that. So you have to find where SPY open to the exact cent, to the exact penny. You don't just estimate where SPY opens. You have to find the exact price SPY opens, round to the nearest dollar, and then in this case, this ended up rounding. I don't know what the open was, but the round went to 673 because we minus 1 for the puts, so 672 puts, plus 1 for the call, so that'd be 674 calls. That's how you do it. You round to the nearest dollar, and then from that nearest round, you add 1 from the rounding number, and then subtract 1 to get your strikes. So that's how you do it. Friday expirations are the same concept, but you do the 5th dollar instead of the nearest dollar. So that's how you get the strikes. It's really simple. Hopefully you know how to round. If not, just throw it into ChatGPT, because I mean, geez, I hope you know how to round. But this is an example of a trade we took. I think this was what day was the 7th? Monday or Tuesday. So this was a trade we took. 10 crossing the 50 here. 50's curling up. That's the criteria of a cross here. The 50 SMA has to be flat or curling up. It cannot be sloped down. So we got the cross, 50's up. Really nice trade right here setting up. And since this cross is happening on puts, I went short. I bought puts, and I also went short on NQ. I trade both options and futures. I run futures on my prop firm accounts, and options obviously I'm on my Webull account. So yeah, went short on the cross here, and bang, look at the move we got. Really nice. I'm pretty sure these 0DTs went well over 100%, 150, 200% maybe on that dump. And then NQ, I know we ended up catching a big move out of that. So I'm pretty sure, what did we catch on this? I'm pretty sure this gave, I think, 100 points on NQ. I'm going to go back in the Discord when I call this out on the 7th, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, I was all out 100 points. This is where I cut half for 60, and then I held the other half for 100 points. I mean, that's a really good move. And then also, I know in this trade we had the 30-minute chart in Confluence, which I'm actually going to try and pull up, because this is one of those instances where the market was actually neutral, but we had the 30-minute chart crossing negative at the time this cross happened. So pretty much that tells me I'm expecting a larger move to happen. And here's what one of the time frames actually looks like. So this is the hourly chart. You can see this is, I know this is a 1 hour chart, but again, the 30-minute chart was going negative. We had the 1 hour chart going negative, and this right here, I mean, massive signs that we're going to drop, because we're finally losing the support on the hourly. The 30-minute chart, the 50 SMA was curling down, which I'm going to show you guys what that looked like. I only have the screenshot of like the aftermath of the 30-minute chart, but this is what it looked like right here. So right off the open, this is where that wick was. So we end up wicking off the 50. There's no trade to take from that, but you can see this 50 SMA started to curl down, and once we start to flatten out and curl down, that's when the market officially is flipping neutral. And from that neutral flip, we usually see a move in the opposite direction. So that would be to the downside, since this is on the call side. And like I said, pair that up with this 1 hour chart going negative, and then pair that up with the 0DT puts crossing. This is why I was expecting a bigger move, and why I held for 100 points on half the position, because it's not typical. This isn't a completely neutral market. We have that higher time frames that are in sync and kind of giving us more of a push to the downside. So that's why I held half for 100 points, and why I ended up holding longer. And that's when I do hold longer in a neutral market, is off of that initial negative cross here on the 30-minute. If we didn't have those 30-minute charts or the hourly charts in Confluence, I would have sold it all for 50 points and packed it up for the day at that, because that's what we do when we're completely neutral. When there's no higher time frames really in sync, nothing really giving us extra confluence, I just take 50 points and leave it at that for the day, because that's what's typically expected in a neutral market. So that's one of the trades we took. A really good setup. And here is another option trade. So SMCI, this is a really good setup, and this is one of those A+ setups, and I'm going to go over why. So first being 30-minute chart here is crossing, so 10 SMA is going back above the 50 SMA, which is bullish. I say I'd be expecting a nice move, probably even less than a day. I mean, like the next hour or two, I'd be expecting some sort of good move out of SMCI. And then we also had the higher time frames in Confluence, so we end up holding major support here at the 50 SMA on the hourly, and then we also held it on the 2 hour, and then this is the big one. 4 hour chart was just crossing, and you can see right here that blue line, that's the 50 SMA. I know it looks weird, it just came on the chart. I'm not sure what kind of determines that, but the 50 SMA on the 4 hour chart appeared higher the time frame, the bigger the move that's going to come. And since this chart was sitting at that major support, I was expecting a really solid move, and I told Discord this has really good potential. And here's the move we got out of it. The contracts went, I think they closed at over $1 on these, like $1 maybe and 5 cents. I think it was like 110% from our entry that I took. I took the 58 calls. I didn't take these ones. This chart just tells me the entry to go long or short, and the the actual strike I like trade doesn't really matter. That's what kind of people get confused on when it comes to actually like trading the strike. You don't have to trade the exact ones you're watching, but you don't want to be watching different expirations that you're not supposed to be. Like, these are the ones that we got for the week, so those are the ones that I'm keeping on my watch list. But when I'm trading them, I'm buying the 58 calls, but I'm watching this chart. Hopefully that makes sense. But you don't have to trade the exact ones you watch, but you don't want to be trading different ones or watching different ones than you're supposed to. Like, these are the ones that we picked throughout the week or for the week, and we got a good move out of it. So SMCI, really good trade. Here's another one. This one was a little bit different. On NQ, I ended up stopping out for 5 points, but on SPY, we ended up cashing on this. So a little bit of a divergence between SPY and QQQ for the day, because SPY was a lot stronger compared to NQ, but it was kind of weird because like right before this cross, NQ was absolutely flying, and then once SPY crossed, NQ kind of slowed down a little bit. So this is the entry I took on the cross, 671 call cross, 10 SMA crossing the 50. It didn't cross yet, but this is something you'll just pick up over time after watching these charts. When the 10 and the 50 SMA get so close together, and the 50's up, the 10's up super hard, this is bound to cross. I know there's 4 minutes left. It could wick a little bit, but it's highly unlikely it's going to wick all the way back below the 50 and prevent this from crossing. So I took my entry here. There's a ton of volume coming in, and I got in. I took SPY calls, and I took NQ longs, and here's the move we got out of it. I ended up selling most of my SPY right here, and then we came down to 10, popped up a little bit. It made another high, but I was pretty much all out of my position right here, and then I sold the rest here at 70% on SPY. Pulled back a little bit, then it trended higher, but when it came to NQ, this pullback I just stopped out on because once we lost the 10, I'm like, I'm not going to hold this all the way back to the 50 because I was already down 5 points from where I was at. If I held it all the way down in the 50, probably would have been down like 30-40 points, and I didn't really want to do that. So yeah, that's what we took. Really, solid move on SPY. Sometimes this will happen. NQ is a bit weaker, SPY is stronger, or vice versa. It's very nice when it's the other way around, and NQ is absolutely flying when SPY is barely moving. That's the way I like it because I'm always trading NQ. But that's why I've been taking both. I mean, SPY 0 DTs, NQ futures. It's a good pair to take on these crosses. And yeah, I mean, another trade opportunity though. We were in a neutral market at this time, which means the 30-minute chart isn't crossed on any side, which means again the 10 SMA is below the 50 on both sides of the calls and the puts for the Friday expiration. So in that scenario, you don't buy this dip here to the blue line. In a trending market, if we had that cross going on the 30-minute, you could buy this dip here at the 50. But since we're neutral, you have to wait for a candle closure back above the 10 right here. So we close back above. You could go long and look at the move we got. I know this ended up trending a lot higher, I believe, from here, but I think that's the last screenshot I did have. But those are the kind of the different trades in a neutral market. I mean, you're taking a call across or you're taking a reclaim of the 10 SMA. This is what a reclaim of the 10 SMA looks like. You want this 10 SMA to be flat, preferably. And I'd say slope down a tiny bit it could be, but if it's sloped down a lot, I'm not taking that 10 SMA reclaim. I went over that in I believe yesterday's video or the video before that. But yeah, you don't want that 10 SMA to be sloped down aggressively when you're taking a reclaim. If it is, just sit out, and if it pulls back and the 10 SMA straightens itself out, then you can take the entry. But you want that 10 SMA to be flat or curling up. So yeah, really good trade on SPY. And then here was a really good trade. Tennis again, put cross right here. I'm pretty sure the market was still neutral at the time. Yeah, it definitely was. So this put cross was setting up 673 puts on the 9th, which was what, Thursday, I believe. Yeah, so that was Thursday. We're just playing simple 0 DT put cross. See, the good thing about this is it's repetitive. We're taking 10 SMA crossing the 50 on the 0 DT contracts pretty much every day this week, and all of them ended up playing out. We didn't stop out on one of these, which was great. It was a really good week, phenomenal week. And I'm going to say this is not a typical week where we hit every single trade like this, but this is why I love the system. When the action's good, we get these types of trades that happen throughout the week. But yeah, 10 SMA crossing the 50 here. I took some starters right here just because the SMAs are pretty close. Again, yes, this was a little bit of an early entry, but I only did have starters, and then this is where I added some more. So you can see how the SMAs are. 10 is literally right at the 50. This is bound to cross. It's 100% going to cross in my eyes. So I added some more, and this is where the move happened. Look to the left side of the chart here. This is where the initial cross happened, and look at the move. I mean, they hit over $3 on their premiums. I caught, what did we catch on this? I think, what did we catch on this? I don't even know. We went short, and what did we catch? Yeah, 50 points. Yeah, I caught 50 points, and I was all out. I mean, we were completely neutral. There was no 30-minute chart in Confluence, so I took my 50 points and got out of that at 10:32, which honestly, you probably could have caught 70 points on that. But since we were neutral, I ended up taking all of it for 50 points, and then I was 70% on SPY. So yeah, 70% on the 0 DTs, 50 points on SPY, or on NQ. I took it all off that, and yeah, really good cross. And then rest of the day, yes, we came down to the 50 and we held it every single time, but since we were neutral still, those aren't trades you're taking. Those aren't valid. It's in a neutral market. Yes, it worked out for these dips, but again, when it comes to the system and how to trade it, this isn't how you trade it. You don't buy these 50 dips. So those weren't trade opportunities. And this is an example of where the 10 SMA slipped down hard that I was just going over to play the reclaim. So since we're neutral, you wait for the reclaim of the 10 SMA, and you can see right here, We closed above the 10, but the 10 SMA sloped down aggressively, and the next candle ends up pumping a lot, and then it slopes up. At that point, too much risk on the table to take that, so not a trade entry there. We come back to the 50, reclaim the 10 again. 10 SMA sloped down aggressively, but it straightens itself out right here. So 10 SMA slopes up on one of these two candles. That's sitting right below 220 on the premium. That's your entry. We got a nice little pump right here, pulls back, holds the 10. At this point, your stop loss is the 50 SMA because of how close it is to the 10 SMA. So stop loss below the 50, and look at the move. I mean, we hold the 10 all the way, and it rips higher. Even if we did lose the 10, still use that 50 SMA for your stop because we are so close to it. It just doesn't make sense to use the 10 SMA in that scenario for your stop loss. And look at the move. Again, I didn't take that reclaim, but those are just examples of how I read the 0DT chart throughout the day, and what entries are valid and what aren't. So yeah, that's what we did on Thursday. Really good opportunity there. And tomorrow for Friday, I'm gonna go over that in tomorrow's video. I'll recap what we did and kind of go over how that day went, because I know I know if you guys are trading, I mean, it was a crazy day. We're gonna go over everything, my thoughts throughout the day, and what we took. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we did throughout the week. We did have some individual names. I'm going to go over really quickly. So I know we took IONQ. I think that was this week, but pretty simple. All I did, buy this 50 dip right here. Again, 30-minute chart cross. We buy these dips to the 50, bought the 50. We were up again like 20-30%, and it ended up breaking below on this candle. I closed it for I think 3%, because once I saw it start to come back down and start to break the 50, I got out before this candle closed. So I prevented that loser and kept it pretty small. So that was another trade we took. Yeah, I went over NEE. This was another one we took. Again, let me change this chart really quickly because this is not a system trade. This is just a regular chart play. Let me just get a normal candle here. But all I was doing was playing this. Let me see. I need a bigger time frame here. Weekly. So you could see this, trend line that we had going. And yes, this does work. Trend lines do work. I'm not gonna say they don't, because I know when it comes to swinging, these are very effective playing these breakouts. So pretty much this is what I saw. We were coming up into this trend line. Really doesn't matter what way you draw it, to be honest, because that's not really what I'm basing the entry off of. But I'm pretty sure all I did was play the break of one of these days highs. So I'm pretty sure this high day break, we got the entry, and I grabbed some calls, and these went up literally first day, I think 75%, and then came back down, and I ended up closing these for a little bit of loss on the rest. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't really much. That's all it was. High day break. That's what all these individual plays are, is like a break of a high of a day, and it's breaking out of a range or something like that. So yeah, that was one we took. And then tomorrow, okay, I'll just go over it now, but ABAT, I told you guys I was in this for a little bit. And you guys, I went over this in the last video, I believe, but right here, you can see this. We got a nice move up here, nice move up, kind of coiled back to the 10 SMA on this chart. And I think on my other chart, is it the EMA? I don't know. They're pretty similar, but it pulled back to the moving averages, and we formed these highs right here, stacked up. We broke above them. I got an entry on this day right here, and look at the move. If you guys check the chart on Friday, it was up like 17% at one point, got 200% on the expiration for next week, and then like 100% on our November once we had it. And I have a little bit of runners, but yeah, that was a textbook trade. I mean, look at the weekly chart, absolutely explosive move. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what we did throughout the week. That's a wrap. If you guys want to learn, join Discord down below. That's where I'm at all day, every day. If you want to learn how to trade these charts, that's the place to be. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'm out. Peace.